We'll start in the bottom of the tile, and we want to make a semicircle string that's going to guide part of our drawing. So I'm just going to make a little bit of a curved line that cuts across the bottom part of this tile. Just like that. Very simple. And then I'm going to also draw one guideline vertically just to sort of visually mark the center of my tile, which is often helpful. And once we have those two simple lines in place, we're ready to start. I'm going to introduce you to a tangle called Scena. And before we start the tangle, let's take this pencil line that we drew and ink that in. Just like that. And now Scena is a really interesting tangle. It can really evolve in a wide range of ways as it's drawn, which is really kind of cool. Makes it a very interesting tangle to work with, and to just everyone who draws it seems to be sort of surprised by how it comes out, because it's so different every time. It's not drawn in the exact same way, but the pattern, the methodology for drawing it is the same. We're going to limit it to this area here. That's why we drew this line, but we're going to try to shape it in an interesting way. So we want to create a simple little mark kind of in the center here, like that. Just a curved line, almost like a reverse S that's looks a little goofy, and we'll add an end to it here that we want to ink in to give it a little darkness on one side. Now what we're going to do is use this line as a starting point for some additional lines that will just randomly curve and curl around. So I'm going to bring this up like that. And now we'll draw some additional lines that will follow or aura that first line. Now one thing that makes Scena interesting to look at is that the end of the lines are going to be thickened or given this little triangular shape or V shape or a zebra stripe or whatever you'd like to think of it as. And there's no set amount that you want to do, but you just want to do it in a consistent way throughout the individual pattern. So we'll continue this process, adding our weighting to the end of these lines. Try to keep the space between your lines roughly the same, but part of what gives Scena that surprising outcome each time is that the lines, the way we curve them, the tightness that we draw them, how thick we or long we make those ends, etc., all of that contributes to how it looks. And this is one of those tangles too that once we shade it, it takes on a whole new life. We're able to accentuate some of these curves and make them appear to go over and under and create high points and low points, and it just really makes an interesting pattern. But for now, we're going to just continue drawing these around. Alright, now once we've completed following that initial line, what do we do then? Where do we go from there? Well, we continue the process, but we add some additional little details of darkness to our pattern as we go, and we just do it by eye, whatever we think we want to do. So I'm going to start one right here, bring it around like this, but I'm also going to create just a few additional black areas right here. You don't have to do 3, maybe you just do 1 or 2. It doesn't matter, and they don't have to be shaped like this. It can be shaped in a different way, a little bit of a wavy line if you wanted, But now I'm going to bring a line around and just aura that, just to fill in those details. But now I'm going to continue bringing this line around, and we'll end the lines in the same way we did when we started. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this pattern, but I'm just going to do one item right here. Just a little ladybug shape, it's often called, a little half moon, semicircle. And then I'm going to curve around that to create this additional pattern. But when I start getting my lines out here, I'm going to thicken them again. And I can do it here too if I want, but sometimes when you start a new area of pattern, there's not a lot of room, but you just do the best that you can. We're going to follow this same pattern idea here. And we got in a little tight area here, so what do? Well, we do whatever we think is going to look good here. Whatever's going to make this pattern work. I'm going to create it right like this. Because as I said, there is no rule. There's just a base methodology. There's no instruction that says you always have to do your pattern a certain way or follow certain curves or anything like that. So now I'm going to change it up a little bit more. I'm going to bring this around here. So now we have that part completed. We can move on to our second tangle pattern, which is called Henna Drum. The Henna Drum is a flower or floral pattern that's used a lot, actually. It's a very popular tangle, but we're going to do a little bit different variation of it. Same principle, same basic steps, but we're going to do it just a little bit differently. We're going to draw 3 of them around the top of this semicircle that we create. And we'll start here in the center, and what we do is we create one of those ladybug shapes I just mentioned, kind of just another semicircle there, and then let's aura inside of that, just like that. And then inside of here, we'll zoom in just a little bit, we want to do a circle that's going to become the highlight, and then just ink this in. That gets our base piece. Now what we want to do is draw our 3 petals on this shape. So we're going to do our center one here first, kind of go up like this, and then from curving around behind there, we'll bring this around like that. We'll add some little petal line indicators here. And then we want to draw an aura that follows this entire piece. And that's how we're going to draw our henna drum in this particular situation. So we want to draw one to the right and to the left of this same shape. Now let's flip our tile upside down, and right where we drew that pencil line to mark the center, we want to draw another sort of a half moon shape about this size. So it's going to go a little bit larger. And now we want to draw some straight lines shooting right off of this that will get wider as it goes down, but not dramatically so, and we can use that line as a guide too. Now we're drawing here the tangle Arukas. We've used it before. We're just drawing it in a little different formation, so it will create a different type of design for us, and I wanted to show you how that can be used in multiple ways to create a whole wide array of different effects, even though it's a similar pattern. So once we do that, now we want to create a couple more of these beams coming out like this. Maybe one that goes on each side and then one that's going to be closer to the top. So we'll just shoot these down. When we draw Arukas, what's the next step? That's right, once we've drawn our lines there, we have to draw our lines here. To aura this initial circle that we drew, and we create that set of lines. Now we're going to draw some additional lines this way, but we want to draw these lines a lot closer together than we did our original lines. We just want them to follow that first set of lines, or them parallel, but we want them to be very close to that. We'll do that to all of these straight lines that we've drawn. And I know I just kind of jumped right in, but the concept of Arukas, if you haven't seen it before, is that we create a set of lines or curves and we alternate then auraing those without crossing over. We don't draw over any lines that we make. We just keep adding them, and they're going to get smaller and smaller as we go in certain places, or shorter and shorter, because there's just not that much room for them to take place there anymore. And that's how the pattern works. Now we'll just end here by putting our last little circle auras in here so that they're the most recent ones poking out. Now what we want to do is create our last tangle, which is the fescue, but we're going to make it a little bolder and heavier than normal. And now we want to draw this in a way that shows some over and under here. So we're going to start these fescue lines right here, but I'm going to draw it up and stop, and then I'm going to go on the other side of this thing and continue up there. So I'll show you what that's going to look like. So imagine it goes behind here, right in through here, and it peeks out right up here and creates our little ending point there. Now I can make this a little bolder yet. Make that nice and heavy there. Now I'm going to draw some more of these shapes. I'm going to take one from right here, kind of behind my flower. I'm going to come up and I'm going to try to stop right somewhere here. So we're going to draw right over these lines that we made. And once we get everything done, that will help to create a sense of depth because of the over and the under. Now I'm going to take another one. Let's see, I think I'll start this one also right here. I'm going to bring it up. I think I'm going to go around behind this time and stop somewhere over here, or maybe curl up there. Let's take a look. Let's see how this is going to work. So we're going to go right here. Stop. I'm going to come down and I'm going to curve up like this. And you do yours however you want to do them. I'm just giving you one example of how we could make some movement in our drawing and also give it that sense of depth by an over and under pattern. Okay, let's see, where might we have another one? I think I'll have another one that just kind of comes right up here. Now I know when you've already drawn your other lines, sometimes it can be a little scary drawn on top of them. I remember watching Bob Ross years ago, the famous painter, and he would draw this amazing mountain landscape with a beautiful, crystal lake in front of it and some cool things on the sides, and then all of a sudden he'd say, now let's draw a tree right here, and he would draw a big old tree right in the middle of the whole drawing, and it used to freak me out, like, why did you do that? You're ruining it. But he didn't ruin it. It just added depth and dimension, and it was really cool, but it was always probably kind of scary to just draw something like that. Let's bring one here this time. I'm going to go all the way across. I'm going to come out. I'm going to go behind this one. I'm going to go in front of this one. And then I think I'm going to land somewhere else. Maybe it'll come up and around. Let's see here. How could we do this? I want to create one that kind of spans the distance here. So I'm going to go here. It's going to go behind. It's going to come up on top here. And maybe it's going to just rest itself right there. So I think it's time to jump into our shading. So let's grab a pencil and we'll start laying down some graphite. I'm assuming that this board is highest and these are furthest away. They're down. They go down. So by using some shadow, it helps to accentuate that effect. Let's add shadow underneath the fescue shapes where they go over the top of the Arukas boards. So not around the whole thing, just on the bottom half, like the light's pushing down this way. Pretend like your Arukas is the light for a minute and it's just shining down. So wherever that would leave that shadow, maybe it's going to cast a shadow down here because this is kind of the bottom part. And maybe up in here too on the bottom of this. So I'm just laying some graphite there that will blend out. And this one is going to come right around here. This will just really help to make this over and under look like that. And let's put some over here. Wherever your fescue shapes have overlapped with something else, that's where you want to think about the shadow. I'm also going to add shadow around my Henna drums where they touch things. Even though it's, again, we don't always obey light sourcing, right? So here the shadow is being cast this way, and here I'm putting a shadow on the total opposite side. That's okay. It's just, we're just drawing with Zentangle, and we're not worried about light sourcing all the time. We're more worried in this case about the sense of over and under. Now Scena, we want to shade the over and under idea as well, but we get to take a few additional liberties with it because of how these shapes come about. So I'm going to add some good heavy shading right in here because I want to make that little valley really stand out, that it goes down there. I'm going to assume this edge is lower than this area here. So I'm going to add some graphite here. And as far as for Henna Drum, I'm going to add just a little bit of shade to these and to the inside, just so we can create some tonal differences as I've talked about. let's see how we look here once we blend some of these details. The last thing I want to do as far as our shading, I want to add graphite to the entire background. So I'm going to very lightly, I don't want to create lines here that can be seen, but I'm just laying down a little bit of graphite into these, what would be open areas where the Arukas patterns are not. So now let's zoom out a little bit. Let's take a look. I think what we could also do is add this aura that we created here. We maybe can add some darkness up in there, some roundings in between the petals and on the shape of the petals. I hope you enjoyed the process today as we put together this little tile. And even though Zentangle is a non-representational art form, meaning we're not trying to draw a picture of anything, sometimes it's hard not to see some kind of symbolism or similarities in our tangles that we can connect to real life. So I kind of see this as the sun shining on the planet, and maybe these are waves of our great oceans and life represented by the flowers and so on. But whatever you see here, whether it's some kind of symbolic thing or whether it's just a bunch of lines and squiggles that you think look interesting, or maybe you don't think it looks interesting at all, but I hope that you enjoyed the process today as we drew together, and I certainly look forward to our next session here in the Tangles and Tunes channel, and until then, take care. Bye-bye now.